I got a new Apple Watch for myself today, and it is the learning curve. It's crazy how much time I'm gonna have to spend just trying to figure out how to get it. So I got the Series 11 Apple Watch because I have an Apple iPhone, so of course you got to have them to sync up. The default font or typeface for the time that comes with, I cannot read. It's very abstract. It's like circles and dashes. So if I look at the time on someone else's or on my phone, and then I look, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I kind of can see it now. And it took me, honest to God, like 20 minutes to just to figure out how to change the face of the watch. That's not even delving into all of the features that this watch probably has. And the reason that I got this is because I want to have the health tracking features. So I particularly want to be able to track my blood sugar, which the Apple Watch can do if it's connected to like a Dexcom. I have a G6. So I want to be able to track my sugars on my watch, but I also want somewhere contained information about my walks in the morning, how far I go, measuring the route. You can backtrack your route if you get lost. I walk around my neighborhood. I'm not going to get lost. But if you were hiking, that would be a really cool feature to have. But I want to track my heart rate and my sleep habits and all the things. I want to be able to track all my health things in one location. And if I should happen to fall on an icy day, I want somebody to be able to find me in the snow if I don't respond. It's not out of the realm of possibility that I could have a fall. So it has a fall detection feature on it, which I hate to have to admit that I'm kind of excited about. But it got me wondering about where are we at with technology, specifically you and me in our mid 50s. I love me some new tech. And at the same time, I'm starting to wonder if there are some technologies that are starting to outpace my ability to keep up with them. How about you?
That's an interesting question. So in the 90s, I absorbed all of the tech, and it was so much more complicated than it is today. Today, it's really user-friendly. In the past, in the 90s and maybe even the early 2000s, the tech was tech-friendly. I remember I was working for a real estate company and I was doing something with contracts. It wasn't even my job to do technology, but I was putting in daisy chains and System 36, and I was hooking up all the printers before you had to actually go and print through a wire. I was the computer technician back then. I'm sure I couldn't do that today, but I also feel like that today's technology is so user friendly. But I wonder if it's user friendly for someone who's a tech native, which we certainly aren't.
Yes. Most of what I just understood, what you just said there, I heard daisy chain, and that sounds like a crochet stitch to me. I think that growing up in the MTV generation is a vastly different world than growing up in the Snapchat generation as far as keeping up with tech.
The tech today has two major components. One is the tech, and number two is the social structure of that tech. You just mentioned Snapchat. I never use Snapchat. There's a whole world of Snapchat. I wouldn't even know how to enter that room. I don't know
Don't
what it's
want to.
for. I don't know how the language is. I get criticized today by the 20 somethings. I get criticized for the icons that I use. So apparently, the
What?
thumbs up icon
Yeah.
is a slap in the face. So you can thumbs up someone else's message, but if I respond with a thumbs up, apparently I'm slapping them in the face.
I have to agree with that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry
And
I
you're,
do. Like you can't just put a big old smacky thumbs up as a response. No, it's got to be in the reply.
I've learned that, but that's not something that I would have figured out if someone hadn't told me that.
I think a lot of the things that I do know are because I watch people mocking people like me on TikTok, and then I make a mental note, okay, don't do that in the future. But other ones like nobody had to tell me not to type in all caps. That has always
Oh,
felt
of
too
course.
aggressive
Yeah.
to me. And we happen to have a parent that likes to type in all caps from time to time, and it's extremely jarring. And I sometimes wonder, am I in trouble? Before I realize I'm in my 50s, I'm not in trouble. Like,
I hadn't
seriously
noticed
not.
that of our parent, but we were young professionals in the email evolution. We
Mm.
learned some of those things. We were part of creating some of the social structure around emails. I remember when we came up with, I think it was Lotus 123, a very early email system where at the office that I was working, and we would call people and tell them I sent you an email. And if you didn't call them to tell them
Yes.
you sent an email, they wouldn't check their email.
Yes. That's still the case today. If I don't get a text from somebody saying check your email, I won't know that. But that's because I've moved past email.
Okay, I think that might be a you thing because I still get tons of emails. Maybe in my professional life, I get tons of emails. My
Yeah.
friends are not emailing me for sure.
No, absolutely. But we have some family that emails. But okay, so when our parents email, they have to text me and say, look at your email, because otherwise I won't probably see it for like a month.
Or they CC me and I'll tell you there's an email.
Yeah.
Either
And
way.
then in the email bar, they'll say things like, if you have a sec, I need to know this. Like it's urgent.
Yes.
If you need me urgently, just send me the texts asking me the same question that you just typed. You know what we need to do is we need to help them figure out how to text on their computer. But that's a story for another day.
Here's an opportunity for us to go deep, which we don't need to take. But the fact that you read when our parents send you an email that say, when you have a sec, and you interpret that as urgent. Because when you have a sec is actually the opposite of urgent.
Yeah, no, not, but I don't read it that way when it's coming from them.
I think everything from them is urgent because we're caretaking for them.
Yes, that's fair. Yep. So I remember when the very first computer we ever got was a black blank screen.
Yes.
And if you knew the right combination of keys, you might possibly, if you were really super lucky, get like green letters come up or green things blinking. And then you could type in commands, like you could type in your whole, whatever your document was you wanted to type in, but you had to remember to do like a control save or like a backslash. But if you didn't know the commands, you couldn't just ask it. Like you
Well, I
either
think
knew it or you didn't.
What you're talking about is the DOS box, where you had to do the
Yes.
backslash, C colon, all that
All
kind
the
of stuff.
things. And that was the only thing it was useful for, is if you knew how to use that. And I remember thinking at the time, I am never going to get this. I'm going to be a typewriter girl for the rest of my life. And I learned how to type on a manual typewriter. Like you had to actually know how hard to push each key in order to get the amount of ink on each letter so that it didn't all look all wonky.
I remember that typewriter, and I love the feeling, the sound,
Yes.
the smell. I loved everything about that typewriter. And I I always say typewriter, but it's typewriter. I always want to
Typewriter.
say typewriter.
Yes. No.
Typewriter. I love that typewriter. And then right before I was in eighth grade when our school first implemented a computer class. The computers were not involved in school, but there was a
No.
computer in the computer class,
No.
maybe 6 or 7 computers in the computer class. And we were learning the language Basic A. It was around that time, maybe just 6 months before that, that our mother upgraded our typewriter, and she got a typewriter that had a memory. So you could type in 10 words, for example, and then press print, and then it would type manually onto a piece of paper. But it had this little tiny screen at the top where it would remember those 10 words, and then it would print it. So if you didn't have to make one mistake, you could actually back it up and then replace it. And then immediately that became obsolete. So I remember this, oh, this seems like such a great investment in this great new technology that became obsolete as soon as we got computers. Do you remember that electronic
I
typewriter?
don't remember that one, but I think I can picture it. I'll tell you what I also do remember, when we would go visit Dad in his office, which by the way, back then was a really big deal. If you got to go to work with your parent in the corporate world and you got to go to the office, it was a huge big deal.
Well, kids didn't exist.
Right.
Kids shouldn't exist in the office.
Right.
You can't have kids
No.
and be an employee.
No, absolutely not. Yes. You're a parent too. What? No. But when
No,
we
that's after
did,
your work.
on a rare occasion when we got to go visit Dad in his office, he would show us around the office and he would take us to the computer room. The room that housed the computer, that was like bigger than a bedroom. That was the place where the computer sat, and it took up the whole entire space.
And he worked for a tech company. So it wasn't like that computer was helping them doing banking or something else. He worked for a tech company, and they had one computer room.
Yeah. The
They had to keep it
computer
cool.
rooms are obsolete now. So now I have a computer on my wrist, which is kind of crazy to me. But I'm starting to move into that era of my life where, well, I'm not starting to move there. I've been there a long, long time, where I do not think I could function in the world without my tech. Everything I do is on my phone. My whole life is on my phone, and now I have a phone and a watch, so I can be completely connected like 24/7.
Well, I completely agree. I wouldn't be able to connect to my family, and my family is extremely important and sometimes urgent as well. So, connecting to my family, for sure, I need my technology. Trying to remember things, I need my technology. I can't keep a list in my head, and if I write a list on a piece of paper, I can't keep track of that. I just go to my phone. That's my go-to. The other big piece of it is brand new technology, AI. My company wouldn't exist without AI, or my company would be 100 times slower if I didn't use AI to create and generate stuff.
So you are using AI already, like daily, like regularly?
Daily, every single day I use AI.
Okay, so how has it been helping your business?
I'm creating things like scientific studies, and to do that on a piece of paper or a blank screen would take so long to generate and edit. And with AI, I can say, create this for me. They can do some research for me. They can check all the websites I need to check. They can give me some advice. And then I go and do the double checking and human part of it to make sure that it's correct. And then I do the editing and I do the crafting. But that initial having something to work on as opposed to having a blank screen is infinitely easier.
Amazing.
So I do advocate that AI has significant hallucinations and it is no way correct in the absence of a human caretaker. But I really do love my AI.
I am looking forward to my at-home assistant also having AI. You know, the one that sounds like Alex, which is what we have to use when we're talking about Alex because otherwise it responds to me all day long. I ask her questions all day long. Every time I have some random thought or some random curiosity, I just blurt it out. Hey, I just found this out the other day. I said, what's the latitude where I live and what's the latitude where my sister lives, who is in Canada and I'm in the States? And as it turns out, we actually live in the exact same latitude. Like, what? Are you kidding me? So that's the kind of stuff I just ask it all day long. And I do use it obviously as a shopping list. And I just blurt out, add eggs, and then it gets put on my shopping list. I am, however, also looking forward to the time because I don't think that Alex is AI generated. I think it's like more like a Google machine. But once it becomes AI, I'm kind of looking forward to having it actually help me run my life. Like legit, like keeping track of my calendar for me, making sure that I'm on top of all my bills and all of the things that I'm doing like manually on a computer program, like in calendars and stuff. But I just cannot wait for the AI to be able to just help me function my life.
So I have thoughts on that exact thing, but to admit one of my shortcomings, I definitely don't use voice assisted anything. If I'm talking to Siri or Google or even the Alex machine, with Alex, I use voice command, obviously, but if I'm making a list, I'm going to my phone and I'm typing it in with my thumbs. So I don't use the voice thing. It's just not my style. But back to the virtual digital assistant, this is a technology that a lot of people are working on. I'm not sure that the big Alex can become a virtual digital assistant anytime soon because it has access to the whole of human knowledge. And, you've heard the saying junk in, junk out. So right now there's a lot of junk in there.
Yeah.
And being able to filter that junk is very, very challenging. My company is working on a digital virtual assistant just like Big Alex, but for a very small subset of information. And that in itself is extremely complicated with filtering the incorrect information. So I think it's going to be a while. It's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, I think it will. But also, filtering it to my personal tastes and preferences is what makes the AI technology so much better and different than like a Google machine technology that it currently sort of is functioning off of, because it will start to learn what I really mean when I'm asking a question and start to, at some point, filter out the junk because it will quickly learn, I hope, it will learn that my preference is not to get the junk information, but to get this specific type of information about these kinds of topics. And so I'm kind of hopeful that once that happens, that it will sort of itself evolve as it's evolving.
I think that's the goal for sure. Hey, if you like our content, please like and subscribe and comment. It helps the algorithm and it helps us develop more material.
Thank you.
So, can we back up a little bit? Can you tell me what you mean by Google machine? What is a Google machine?
I don't know why. It just sounds so old-fashioned to say the Google machine. So I ironically call it the Google machine when I'm talking about it because I mean, I know it's just Google, but I think there's a part of me too that is starting to want so desperately to move into that next phase of the evolution of it that Google itself feels like an outdated machine to me.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I kind of call it the Google machine because it's old technology now compared to the AI and compared to the other things that it can do.
So Google blew up in 1999. It's
Wow,
not that long.
that's not that old, but in technological terms, it's pretty old.
So I was in grad school when Google blew up, and I went to grad school at UC Berkeley. So I was right in the backyard of all of the Google machine creators, as you like to
Yeah,
say, Google machine. It's so funny
I
to me.
do.
I remember being in my lab, and we had computers, and we had the internet, we had Yahoo, and we had Netscape, and all of these high-tech companies. Another grad student in my same lab, he used to use Google, and it was early, early days, and Google wasn't anything yet. And I remember thinking, how stupid are these young, high teens, young 20 somethings calling their company Google? That's never going to go anywhere. That's so stupid. It's like Yahoo. It's so call it
Oh
something
yeah,
serious.
Yahoo's
And now
much
Google
worse.
is part of our language.
Well, and Google's a real word. It's just they spelled it wrong. Maybe on
Google is the
purpose.
word, right? Google is the word.
I feel like okay, see now I'm gonna have to now you're gonna Alex, how do you spell Google? Oh, Alex. Susan respond if I say Alex.
It's very polite of her.
Alexa, how do you spell Google? How do you spell the word Google that is a measurement, not the internet browser? No.
Googol.
So
Oh,
I'm typing it. I'm typing it now.
thank you. She said Googol.
Okay, I'm typing it. I've got to see.
Yes, Gogol. Googol is 1 times 10 to the 100th power. I think that's why they named it Google because Google is like a monstrous number.
So
Duo
Googol.
duotrigintillion. Duotrigintillion.
So Gogol is also the same thing. I'm going to check the difference between the two
Okay, of course you are.
using my old-fashioned thumbs.
Typewriter. Yes, the type.
Okay, so it's saying my AI in Google is saying that Googol is a misuse, I think, of the extremely large number. So
Okay.
Googol is the number.
So it was intended to mean something more than Yahoo. Yahoo!
So we didn't have the quick access to technology that we do now to figure all of that out. I just thought that
Right.
Google was so silly that that kind of company, that they're teens, that they're just fresh out of university or dropped out. I've had many, many wrong impressions about technology. So as an example, when the mouse first came out, I was very good at computer language, the DOS box and the basic A and early forms of COBOL and stuff like that. We typed in from that little blinking green box. And I thought to myself, what's the use of putting the mouse somewhere else on the screen? We can use tabs, we can use the down button. Why would we need to put ourselves somewhere else on that screen? And I thought the mouse was just the biggest waste of time. And then this whole world popped open of what we call WYSIWYG, which is what you see is what you get, where that was the earliest form that wasn't the computer language, but the visual input output, the visual human interaction. And once that exploded, of course, we needed the mouse from there.
I remember thinking that with this new interface, I was going to be limited in my ability to program it the way I wanted it to,
Interesting.
which of course is ridiculous because I have zero ability to program anything. But because I was so used to that DOS box, and now it
Right.
was just telling me click and save, like it freaked me out a little bit. But now, obviously, can you even imagine going back to a DOS box?
So yes, I can.
Oh
I'll tell
no,
you why.
girl.
So with disclosure, which we haven't given at the beginning of this episode, and that is that I have a graduate degree in computer science in 2024 to 2025. So I just went back and I learned all the stuff. Not even all the stuff, 1 year's worth of stuff. But we did C++, Java, assembly language. I mean, we went all through the different layers of languages, and many of those I couldn't use on my upscale MacBook Air. We had to open up a DOS box and program in the DOS box. So I actually did
Wow.
go back to program in DOSBox where it was line by line. It was not WYSIWYG. It was GUI's the modern version of WYSIWYG, I guess, but it was just a colon with a blinking green line. So
Yeah.
in 2024, 2025, I was programming in DOSBox or
Wow.
an emulator of DOS.
That's amazing.
So I
Amazing.
have two stories. I remember distinctly, I was working in Big Pharma when we were all issued Blackberries. And they were the big old clunky Blackberries, and we all
Yes.
loved them. And we
Loved
would
my
we
Blackberry.
would compare scores on Brick Breaker because that was the only game they had. So we'd be sitting in the airport playing Brick Breaker and trying to beat each other's scores. But I remember distinctly when the upgrade was to a BlackBerry with a colored screen, and we could actually access the internet from the BlackBerry, not just phones and contacts and whatnot. And we were at one of those offsite meetings where all of us were there, and in the evening had a nice dinner, and we had a whole day of work. And so we were just playing around with our Blackberries, and we decided we would ask a trivia question and see whether someone could look it up or actually remember it first. And it was one of the situations where we're all thinking, okay, I know the answer. Let's gotta think about it for a minute. And we did a comparison whether we could look it up quicker or remember it quicker. Guess who won?
Remember it quicker?
No,
No, the internet.
the internet. Even the slow back then
Wow.
internet was quicker. When you had to like sign on to an internet site, you couldn't just pop up to Google
Oh,
or whatever it was.
yeah. Yeah.
So even with that, that was quicker.
That's, oh my gosh. Okay, that was one story. What's the other story?
I don't know.
No, I know. Why don't we ask the Google machine? Because it'll probably
I
know what you
remember
were
what's in
thinking
my head while I'm scrolling.
while you're scrolling. So if you wonder why we're saying that we're scrolling, okay. So one of the people that we love very much, who is even further advanced than the non-tech native generations that we are, sometimes gets the words a little bit mixed up as to what's going on. And so one time we were trying to help them do something on the phone. And so we asked, put this in and let's see what happens. And we waited and we waited and we waited. And we were like, what?
Oh no, we're doing all this by FaceTime.
We were all on FaceTime, so
Had to
we
help.
couldn't see their screen. So we're like, what do you see? And they said, well, my phone, it's just scrolling. And I was like, that's alarming because your phone shouldn't scroll without you when you're not touching it. And what they actually meant was that it was thinking, it was processing. And the little circle was going around in circles, but in their mind, it was scrolling. And so now every time when you and I are talking about something processing, we say, oh, we're scrolling. So our mind, oh, hold on, I'm scrolling.
Processing became scrolling.
Yeah, so we do know what scrolling is, but it's kind of a thing now in our family. We had a conversation the other day with all of my kids, actually. We were all in the car, and the conversation about AI came up. And I am not terrified of AI and the awful, horrible things that are possible because AI has the ability to learn, Also, because we grew up in the duck and cover generation. And in case you don't know what that is, we were taught as young children that if a nuclear bomb is coming to your city, you duck under your desk and cover your head as if that would protect you from a nuclear bomb. So, growing up in the era when any moment now, some rando dictator from some other country with nuclear weapons capabilities is going to wipe us off the face of the earth, to now tell me that we're in danger, complete and utter human extinction because the AI will learn to protect itself, it just doesn't faze me. However, my young adults were terrified of the possibility of it basically going full Terminator and deciding at some point in the future that its own self-preservation is worth human extinction.
Wait, I appreciate your attitude of if we're gonna have a nuclear bomb or a termination event because of AI, who cares? I love that.
Exactly what I was saying, but yeah, okay.
So I'm not an AI expert. I work with it every day. I'm working on technology to build a product. I'm moderately exposed to AI, and I listen to a lot of podcasts about AI, and I've done some reading about AI that's current. So my take is that all of the stories that are being shared that foreshadow the AI taking over or becoming sentient or recognizing their own self-preservation, my interpretation of those stories is exactly why AI is not going to take over or become sentient. I'm a PhD in neuroscience, so I study the brain, and I know what it takes to replicate the brain, and we're nowhere even close to that technology. So there's a couple stories that I heard too in particular that I'll talk about. And I'm actually, let me write down the second story because I'm going to forget which the second story is. The first story is early on, before ChatGPT 3, I believe, was released. It was released to a bunch of engineers in California and Massachusetts. They got to play with it for several weeks before it was released to the public. And one of them related a very common story to the AI and asked the AI a question. And so they related a story that said Bob and Dave were roommates, and Bob got up in the morning and put the cat in a box in the bathroom. And then Dave got up later and took the cat out of the box and then went to work, and they were both at work. And the question was, where does everybody think the cat is? And a human would say, Bob thinks the cat's in the box in the bathroom. Dave thinks the cat's not in the box. And that would be the end of it. That's a very simple, logical query that people ask because Bob is wrong but doesn't know that he's wrong. So then the answer that the AI gave them was Bob thinks this, Dave thinks this, the cat thinks this, the box thinks this, the bathroom thinks this. And that was the interpretation of that response was the AI is really, really, really intelligent. And my response is that it's so limited because it doesn't know that a box and a bathroom don't think. And that seriously, the question was not about the box. What does the box think? What does the bathroom think? To me, that points out a huge limitation, not some sort of expanded ability and intelligence. So the other story that I wanted to bring up was about an AI email bot that was involved in blackmail. So I don't remember the exact details of the story, but there was apparently a senior executive who didn't like AI in this corporation. He thought the AI was taking over too many jobs or getting too much information about the company. And so the senior executive decided that we needed to shut down the AI. And the story goes that the AI figured this out and then sent emails to other people that were sort of blackmailing this senior executive and saying that he was having an affair or whatever it was. The AI was essentially blackmailing the senior executive. Now, people think that this is self-preservation, but to me, it's just a limit. It's just another reflection of the fact that the information that was fed to the AI was exactly what it spit back out at us. So there was some blackmail somewhere in the company, or the concept of blackmail that leads to self-preservation. All of that came from humans. So really, it's just the AI spitting back what it had learned. So to me, that's not scary at all. It's just what it had learned, and it's limited to what it has learned. It doesn't create new things out of it unless it's a hallucination.
Because it is spitting back what it's fed, and what we feed it is crap. That was part of the fear, was that it is going to look at not only the best of humanity, but also the worst of humanity and all of the worst information that we have to offer it, and do whatever it takes to keep itself functioning. And what I came back with was that, first of all, the desire for self-preservation, desire is a human emotion. It's a human expression. I don't think AI anytime in the near future is going to have the capacity for desire. So what I said was, for an AI to seek self-preservation is going to require it to want to stick around. And it just doesn't have that. We can't assign that a personality or desire to an AI.
Very true. They're human emotions, and they're based on something much more complicated than the neural networks that we have, which we could technically replicate from a structural point of view. But then the hormones and the constant inputs that we don't exactly even understand as humans yet, what we see, the peripheral things that we see, the things that we filter out, the things that we hear, the things that we smell, all of those things have an effect on our thought process. And at least in this century, there's no way we could replicate all of that and create a duplicate AI being that has desire.
One of the arguments was that if people threaten to shut down AI, if we assign it the ability to have a desire to self-preserve, that even if the AI chooses self-preservation over humanity, the aggressor in the scenario was humans. The aggressive action was the human threatening to turn it off. The aggressor wasn't the AI. So if we give it no reason to need to get rid of humanity, then it would have no reason to get rid of humanity. It's almost always the humans that are the aggressors. And here's the other thing, and this is why I brought up the scenario from the 1980s when we were taught duck and cover. I am way less afraid of AI making decisions. My kids said, what if AI has the ability to use the nuclear weapons against other countries and start a nuclear war? I said, I am so much less afraid of AI starting a war than I am of the absolutely, completely insane, crazy, malignant, narcissistic dictators that are the most likely human beings to do that. Because if they wake up on a whim one day and just are pissed off at the world and decide to take it out on some other country and they have the nuclear codes, they are way more terrifying to me than AI, which currently and probably for a really long time yet is still somewhat under the jurisdiction of whatever it is we feed them. And AI is not going to wake up on a whim one day and decide to exterminate humanity because they got pissed off because someone trampled on their shallow little feelings. You know what I'm saying?
So true. Humans are infinitely more dangerous than AI for the foreseeable future. Let me ask you this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. You know that about me, but there are stories about the launch of what's the Tesla robot, Omni, the humanoid
Oh,
robot.
I don't know the name of it.
So they're selling these robots that are built like humans, and humans are not built well. Humans are built because they need to have babies. They're not even designed. We're just something that evolved into the way that we are because at each of those evolutionary stages, they became more and more advantageous to us. But if we could design any format at all, why would we design something that looks like a human? Especially if we were going to put this in our homes and they're going to be standing up against the charger overnight and they're just a humanoid with no, it was a
That's
bad
really
design.
creepy.
But these humanoid robots that I think Kim Kardashian bought one and put them in their home, they're going to be AI driven. Right now, they're driven by a technician in the office who's got the VR headset and moved for the robot. So you heard about this
What?
robot who loaded the dishwasher without breaking any dishes in 5 minutes. But it was a dude with VR goggles who was loading the thing. And then they did a more recent example. A humanoid robot was going to mix some drinks for people at a launch party for this robot. And the drinks kept falling over and he couldn't get the drinks right. And so eventually the robot just fell backwards, just fell over. But before he did that, before he fell over backwards, if you look at this video really carefully, and well, it doesn't even have to be looked at carefully, but a bunch of glasses broke, and then the robot goes like this and then falls over. So the robot has no reason to do that. It's the motion of taking off virtual reality headset. So Tesla was
Oh,
claiming no, it's driven by AI, and yet that autonomous AI driven humanoid robot took off VR headsets that didn't exist and then fell over backwards.
wow. Oh my
So I think we're
gosh.
further away than people would like to admit,
I think
which is
so
good
too.
news. It's good news.
That is really good news. I think that was one of the fears too, is that people are afraid that it is growing so quickly that it is going to outsmart us faster than we can continue to grow. Because here's the thing, we're not really that much smarter than we ever were. Humans, right? Like on a very basic human level, we're still pretty fucking dumb. So I don't see us evolving at the same rate as technology. However, I also don't see the technology evolving as fast as the people who are afraid of it are thinking it's going to evolve. And honestly,
I
all we have to do is keep up with the technology that we've created. We don't have to always be 10 steps ahead of it. We just need to be half a step ahead of it, or at least have thought through some of the scenarios and have some backup plans. But I also think this is super like Inception, but I think that we could train AI to teach AI how not to go down the roads that we're so scared of. I think
yes,
we could
actually.
actually help AI learn how not to have any kind of desire or thoughts about exterminating humanity for any reason. Like we can ask AI to help us figure out how do we prevent you from eliminating all of humanity, and it will itself move in that direction. This is a complete and utter I know nothing about anything person right here. I know nothing. This is all my opinion. I have no basis about this except for just a couple of years experience on this planet and having been through so many apocalyptic level threats since my birth that this one just doesn't scare me as much as some of the others have.
Gen X. Gen
Gen
X.
X, yes.
I also feel like the people who fear it are going to be helping to rein it in. And that's a good thing. We need some give and take. I'm not against some people having a concern about the future of AI, for sure.
Yes, I do not want to discount that there are fears. Absolutely. We have to be cautiously optimistic about technology and what it's capable of. I think one of the things that excites me about something like AI, one of the fears is that AI is going to take over all our jobs. The reality is, we live in a world now where human beings may not actually have to work in order to survive. Like, we live in a world now where if we didn't have greedy, maniacal, selfish, malignant narcissists running things, we have the capability to feed all of the humans on the earth, to offer health care to all the humans on the earth, and to do all of those things without making us work our fingers to the bone in order to do it. And I am really hopeful that AI will help us move to that place where we don't have to be the worker bees to the oligarchy. If we can figure out some way to topple them, we might actually get to a place where human beings can just exist. Back when we moved from the industrial age into the modern technological age, there was this dream that maybe we could go down to like a 10-hour work week. And what ended up happening was we actually ended up working harder. So we moved, instead of from a 40 to a 10, we moved from a 40 to an 80. And there's no reason for that other than I think that the people at the top wanted to continue to make more money. And the best way to do that was to incentivize human beings to work harder for them. And the way that
So
you would,
look down here for a link to our other video on capitalism. It'll be posted
yes,
soon if it's not there.
I think that we are so tired of working 80-hour weeks just to not even have enough to feed our families
Right.
that I think something has to change. Something has to break. And I feel that tension right now in the world. Like, I feel it in the air. I feel that tension that this continuing to make the people at the bottom work harder and harder and harder and harder and harder for less and less and less and less and less is not sustainable. And I think we're almost at that tipping point where it's going to have to break. That system has to break so that we might actually get back to like human beings being human beings and having social lives and having families and investing in the things that are really important to humanity, not just investing everything that we are into making money for the people at the top. I do think that the technology we are creating, including AI, do have the capacity to help us move more in the direction of reclaiming ourselves and our human time as human beings, because we can let some of the other stuff be handled by the technology.
Yeah, that was a good topic. That was a good one. Yeah, I didn't remember my second story. Yesterday, I was in the supermarket here in Montreal, and there was a little family in front of us, a young mom, a young dad, and then a little baby kid, like 3, 4 years old. And at our supermarket, there was little training carts that said in French, future client in training, with a little flag that comes up at the top. And it's a tiny little cart. And the family had put all their stuff in the little tiny cart. And the parents were at the checkout, at the where you pay, and the little baby was taking all the stuff out with his little mittens and putting everything on the countertop and was going super slow. And the man behind me is, okay, I understand you have to teach your kids, but can you hurry it up a little bit?
Did he
And my
say that out
reaction was,
loud?
yeah, yeah.
What?
And I didn't say anything. I just, in my mind, how do we expect children to be good at something if we never give them the opportunity to be bad at it? Because there's nothing on earth that we do well without having first done it badly. So I want to discuss with you today what it's like as a mom to teach our kids things, and where's the boundary in that, and how do we let them do it badly long enough for them to do it well.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea so much. So, this thought also came to me over the holidays when I was wrapping presents. The tradition in my household is that I wrap presents pretty much the minute they arrive in my house because I want to have a tree full of presents. And so, the whole entire season of Christmas, I have all of the wrapping paper and everything readily available because I want to be able to do it right away. The rest of the family waits until literally Christmas Eve, and then they all rush over to my house and they wrap presents using all my stuff. And it's just a hot mess. And I just got to thinking, it would be so fun to really just talk through all of those things that we just assume that people know how to do, what they probably don't if we don't teach them. And the reason that you and I know how to wrap presents is because one of the very first jobs that our mom ever had was in a department store wrapping presents. So she learned how to do it well, and then she taught us how to do it well. And I apparently haven't taught my kids how to do it well because
You're
they
only
kind of suck
29.
at
It's
it, you
okay.
know.
Hey, Asma, do you like your mom's content?
I do. Do you like it, Kiwi?
I really do. I like my mom's content.
It's
Hey,
amazing.
like and subscribe, please.
Like and subscribe.